Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I hope everybody's doing well. We are happy to have Imam Darnell come here. I'll give a little intro about the Imam and inshallah we're going to get started. So, Imam Darnell Kareem is one of the most senior Imams, educators, and leaders for the Muslim Americans, has been serving the community for over 74 years as a speaker and instructor. He was a childhood friend and assistant to the late Imam Warduddin Muhammad rahimullah in Islamic studies. He attained his primary education entirely through the University of Islam, Clara Muhammad School System, and followed up his Arabic language and Islamic studies with Professor Jamil Diab for over 10 years and continued his studies under the leadership of Imam Warduddin Muhammad. He is a national speaker visiting many Muslim communities across the country and an advocate supporter of the leadership and association of Imam Warduddin Muhammad. And today's topic, inshallah, will be the Sea of Stars, the untold story of the women in African American Muslim history. Without further delay, inshallah, I would like to give the mic to Imam Darnell Kareem. Bismillah.
Assalamu alaikum. That is, peace be upon you. I want to thank the Muslims in this beautiful mosque in Houston, Texas. Yes, that's okay. All right. In this beautiful mosque here in Houston, Texas, which is one of many. And I'm surprised because as I travel, I've been here so many times where there was no mosque. And you come to a beautiful place like this, and it seems like you're back home in your own country, to your country in Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Pakistan, India, and so forth, wherever that you see a population of Muslims all over the world. But just the fact that we see you in this country able to have the freedom to practice your religion is a blessing from God. My name is Darnell Kareem. They gave me such a beautiful introduction. Thank you for that. And sometimes when they read things that I have done in my life, I think they but it's been a long journey. Let me give you a little idea of who you're speaking to, and who's speaking to you. Pardon me. And I hope that you appreciate some of the things that I will present to you. You're looking at a person or who represents a community. We say it is black people, but I don't like those terms, black. We have a long history of suffering here in America in terms of us searching for our true identity as a people. But the history is there, and I wouldn't want to spend the time that most of you all are probably aware of slavery that was here in America. But we go back into history a little bit. You heard the term the Nation of Islam, but I would like to use the term original Nation of Islam. Started with a man named W.D. Farad. He came here from India. He's from India, and from my understanding, the Indian, it could be Pakistani, whatever, but the culture is basically the same. You speak different languages, but basically you dress alike and whatever the case may be, and things that your food, everything is the same. But anyway, during that time in the 1930s, there was a lot of conditions for the people in India wasn't good, and depression and etc. And he saw that same type of condition here in America with the African American people, people that he felt was lost, and they were. He landed here in Detroit, Michigan, or they call it Hamtramck, Michigan. And his whole idea of coming to America and lending help to us as we say, black people or African American people, is that he wanted us to help us to find what God had given to us by nature, our true self as human beings. We lost that. We lost our culture. We lost our language. We lost our people, and etc. When they came here, we were put on plantations, and we took on the names of the slave master. Our names that we had were beautiful names. I don't have to name them all, but they were beautiful names that we had from the time that of our ancestors, historical of our ancestry. But anyway, in saying that, the idea was to work with people to help them to bring back what God established. And what is that? In the Quran, it says, وَالَّذِي خَلَقَ فَسَوَّى وَقَدَّرَ فَهَدَى. Now, much of the Quran, just one word is very powerful. But in that statement, خَلَقَ فَسَوَّى وَقَدَّرَ فَهَدَى, it is He who created, the human being created the human being. فَسَوَّى. فَسَوَّى is the word from the word siwad, means equal. God has put it in every human being equality to excel. No one is above the other in our nature. And then he says, خَلَقَ فَسَوَّى وَقَدَّرَ فَهَدَى. Then man tries his best in his urge as he has created to succeed and to try and to grow and develop of this excellence that's inside of him that God given him. Then he begins to, God guides him step by step. But somewhere is the key that I'm trying to mention here tonight, for somewhere. Now we keep in mind trying to help the people that they lost their true identity. The original human being, humanity, indeed, we have created, I'm speaking from the Quran, all of you from one single male and female, nafs and wahida, just what God is saying in here. I'm paraphrasing for a minute. And the best among you is the one who is most God conscious, the best, not because of color and etc. O Muhammad, be ever God fearing, conscious of your Lord, who created all of you from one nafs and wahida. Nafs and wahida is male and female. Everything that God created is always in the duality, in the dual form. Now, I look at that and I think about it. How do I describe myself? How do you describe yourself? How do we see each other? Do we see each other because of the color of our skin? Or do we see it's easy to say, well, yes, probably so, you're this, you're that? Well, I was asked one time, I said, invited to a event, and they asked me, how do you, how does black people suffer? How does Muslims suffer? How does white people suffer? I was very uncomfortable with that. They paid for my to go all the way to Florida to give a big speech, and I said they're paying all this money for this. Is a very simple answer, but it wasn't because the way the world is out here, we see everybody in terms of black people, white people, brown people, whatever. Well, we identify with that, and that's not good. So when I finished the talk, I said, we simply suffer as human beings. That's all. The suffer has nothing to do with your color at all. We all have red blood, we have hearts, lungs, etc. Different ways we are created and everything, but we basically have the biological makeup is really the same. My original self, before there was any nationality, ethnicity, racial differences, my original self is human being. There was nature in its purest form when we were born. The human being, God's will and his will. And he named it Muslim. This is what we believe. Submission to the will of its creator. Muslim is what is Muslim? Muslim is a discipline needed for man's growth and development, and it also represents his biological makeup when we say Muslim. So when we're saying Muslim, we're not talking about any particular race or ethnicity, but originally that we are all human beings that God has created us. And then we come with the different colors that he has made. Human beings are born peaceful in its nature, arriving in life for the first time in the physical world. The Arabic word is called fitra. And fitra, what is fitra when God created us? Fitra means that when he established us, he established the pattern for which we are to live by. Everybody's on the same pattern. Pardon me. So now, in saying I can read much more in terms of our originality, and we want to keep that thought in mind about original, what we all are. By nature, we are all human beings. Now we get to the point that I want to make for the night in terms because it's so much out there in the air, or we say in history where the Nation of Islam, original Nation of Islam, had a very important impact here in America. It actually really, I would say, popularized Islam in America. Before that, you never did hear about this word. But this Nation of Islam was created to, I would say, rescue the African American people because they were lost during the time of slavery. So the man, W.D. Farad, what did he do? He created terminology. He created terminology, and the terminology really wasn't real, but it was enough terminology there to keep us within a certain circle that we wouldn't be influenced by the outside world. Esoteric, as we can say, esoteric or mystic language that was used. And this language that was used, it sounded so powerful, and it was because it really made us feel good about ourselves. Because originally it said that we were not even human beings. So, what else was important in creating the original Nation of Islam? Education. That was most important. In education, they saw that it had disappointed the African American children that they wasn't getting the equal educational that was given to ordinary children out in society. So I would believe, and we feel like this community that I grew into was a God intervention. It's God that came in and saved the people that was lost. And remember this, no matter what human beings go through, whenever we go through it in life, you have to realize that God is never absent. He's always present. But it is His will that He allows human beings to go through certain life experiences, but God is always there. This is His way. We're here for a while, we come into the world, and we leave from here. But in between that, as we say, we have something to do. And He brings, says that this life is like a temporary. It's called ghurur. It's just a temporary attraction. But we're here for a while to what? To win the reward of God. So He says when it's all over with, He has something much better for us than what we see in this world. It's called El Hay, El Hay Ba'd al Maut. El Hay Ba'd al Maut, but more than sin hereafter, we believe in the after. Wa'adullah, Wa'adullah. But as I try to relax myself here a little bit tonight, and I see you out here in the audience, it's they say whoever showed up, you're the chosen ones. Even if it's 5 people, you're the chosen ones to hear this message, inshallah, God willing. And I hope that my message will come to you clear of expressing my feelings and expressing the people who I represent, and is part of millions of us what we have been through with. Today, I look at it like I said earlier today in the Jummah. It's like Arafat. Like, let's say it's an Arafat. Well, what the prophet says that if you don't make Arafat, your prayer is null and void. Look at all of the different ethnicities that we have that accepted Islam, but how many of us really know each other? The most important part of life itself, the most important part of our religion is for us to know each other, get acquainted, to know each other. More than saying, Salam alaikum, alaikum assalam. It's much more than that. When people come in here in the masjid, it's bodies coming, but there's also minds. Also coming here with mind, having problems and not having problems, but these are worlds in our head, worlds walking in here, and we're going through different experiences in life that we need help, we need a guidance, or we also need encouragement. But it's very important that God has made us of all the different colors and the different languages, etc., to get better acquainted with each other, your culture, my culture, and we share with each other. Now, getting back to the to W.D. Farad and getting back into identity, he created what we call the University of Islam, which I was part of that school. My wife Gloria, who's present here with me, we went to this school. And said, how can it be a university? You haven't even started. You're in kindergarten. You're in your children. Well, he created words for us then that made us feel good about ourselves, feel proud about ourselves. You have to remember, can you think about you being subjected to an environment that everything was taken from you, and now you, as they might say, you out in an open field and you're lost. But God saved us, you know. So this school system that He created, it allowed for us to educate ourselves by the guidance of God without interference with the outside world. This university concept was there, and it started in homes. It started in homes, and Sister Clara, who's the wife of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, with her 7 children. School, and it began to grow. And the people who had came and joined the Nation of Islam then, many of them wasn't highly educated. They were just ordinary people, but they had children, and they wanted their children to have the best education. So what did we depend on? We depend on faith, trusting each other, seeking God in the true sense of the word, the true image of God, the true sense of the word God. And we believed in the Almighty who had made it possible for all of us. You see? So my life, our whole life was struggling to find self. When you read the Quran, God mentions about creating human beings, yes. But the key word that God wants us to focus on, that He created self. And that's what has been missing. Self has been missing, and we're seeking self. Brothers and sisters, life is so important that God has brought us into what we call life. And can you imagine coming into life and just being lost, and God didn't do that? We're here for a purpose, and say when He created us and gave us life, but He also gave us guidance. So we're here for a purpose, and that purpose has been taken away from us. Now we're saying we want it back. I traveled with Malcolm once. I'm jumping around a little bit on purpose. In our school, when we was in school, and we had Arabic teacher, Jamil Diab, and etc., was teaching us the Arabic language. And the purpose of that was the vision that Elijah Muhammad had at that time was to help us to understand the religion and the language of the Quran. So that was back there in the late 1940s. And Malcolm had joined the community. And my brother and Elijah Jr. and Raymond Shreve, his son-in-law, we were assigned to come to New York to work with Malcolm because he had joined the community and he was excited about that now African American or black people are learning their own language. Those are good times that I'm sorry to have a camera that I took pictures with him, but I cherish those days with Malcolm. He had an interview with the media, and the crowds out there waiting on him to come out. You know, Malcolm was here, and when Malcolm came out, a lady stopped him. He says, "Malcolm," he says, "what do you want?" It seems like you just complain a lot, but says, "What do you want?" And Malcolm just said, "I want the same thing you want." Just as simple as that. I want the same thing when he's talking to a Caucasian sister. And he just told us, "Hey, I want the same thing you want." So that said a lot to me. Now, he didn't know the Quran like we knew it now, and even back then when he had accepted Islam in the true sense of the word Islam. But that's exactly coming to the present day right now. equality is what God has created all of us, pardon me, He has created all of us equal shares and accept, and the one who is best indeed is the one who is God conscious. Now, what I can do here, if you don't mind, my brother, David gave us a warm invitation. Rather than to speak for so long, if you didn't mind, maybe we could use some of this period for questions. People have, some of you might have some questions in mind, and then we can go from there because I have another message I want to give to you before we dismiss. So, with your permission, is there any way that we can use that people will ask questions? I know this was part of the, the procedure, but I think I feel comfortable with that. You know, sometimes when you you come and you speak, you can say so much, and I have so much to tell you all. I have so much to say tomorrow. I have a lot to say because it's just built in me to what this community has done for me and my wife, my family, and others, for millions, thousands of us. Even was there, I'll leave many you know here in Houston. What what made this type of a person? What's going on with the community? I understand. I thought that you all were you were not Muslims. Now you have joined the Muslim world. Well, before you ask any question at all, I want you to know we never was converted to Islam. We were averted back to what was taken from us. And what we have been through with searching and searching for our own, God has given it to us. And so now we are a new people. We see life better. We see the Quran better. We see God better now in its true sense. We believe that in all of the revelations that came before the Quran, and we see the Quran as the final revelation for all people. And we see the Quran also what God said most recent. This is what we follow. And we believe in the Quran, in the words of the Quran, because the language unites all of us. Nothing in the Quran speaks in terms of color. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, O ye who believe, O ye who have faith, O mankind. This draws attention to the world of why so many people are joining Islam and etc. Why? Because the words of the Quran is addressing something that's missing in every human being, peace. So I'll leave it, someone asking questions. If you don't have any questions, that means we covered the whole world tonight. I know the program was for, I won't come here to make a great speech or anything, but my soul is telling me and directing it that way. To ask some questions. Maybe it's something I didn't think about. Maybe it's something I might have missed. Maybe you want to know who are you? So anyone have any questions that you have in mind? Yes. You can speak up a lot so I can repeat your question. Yes. Yes. Sorry, brother. You will. Okay.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
So my question is, what, what?
We'll adjust the mic a little bit. Yeah.
Salam.
So, what were the challenges of early Muslim communities? Um, when you talked about the man from India that came to, introduce Islam to the African American brothers, what were the challenges of the earlier Muslims, the Muslim communities, as they were interacting with, the words of Allah, the practice of the religion initially?
What is the challenges
The
that
initial challenges they faced while they were trying to embrace Islam.
He's saying the initial challenges that the brothers faced while they were embracing Islam, the early times.
yes, I think that the early challenges was I stay with the word self. You would be surprised, or you probably read it in your history too, about people being subjected to saying that you're nothing. You felt that you're less than human being, and etc. Just living in that period of time where you had prejudices that you couldn't go to the washroom, a restroom, public restroom. You couldn't eat at certain restaurants. There's things that you couldn't do because of the color of your skin. So to live in that type of environment was very challenging for us. But what kept us going, we was determined. We were searching for what God gave me by nature. So in my mindset, my challenge was, I'm just as good as you. A person told me once, he says, I can do this. This is hard to do. And then I said, did you do it? He said, of course I did it. Then I can do it too. So I think the challenge, my brother, if I'm understanding your question correctly, trying hard to find yourself, trying to be accepted in society, and trying to when you go to look for a job, you want to be accepted as equal. Don't not give me this job because you see me as me, my color, my skin. But I have to do things for my life to be accepted naturally, not by just complaint. So we worked hard and still working very hard to be accepted normal like everyone else, not to please society, to please God. But I think that's one of our greatest challenges, to want to succeed in life and you say, I want to do this, I want to do that. Then you leave your house and you say, oh, I don't think I'll be able to do that because they don't accept because of my color of my skin. In Chicago, I went to look for a job. I was in my early 20s, very prejudiced back then. And when I say proud challenges, it was very hard to get a job because of the color of your skin. But I was learning about Islam, so I felt good about myself because the original Nation of Islam had given me words and terminology to say that I'm just as great as the other person. When they told me, he said, can you imagine one race telling you that you're less than a human being, and here someone comes along and tell you that you're God and that you're the owner of the earth? And they said, you'd be surprised how it worked. I know how much is land, how much is water in the earth. I know how much the earth weighs. I know how far the earth is from the sun. All of the planets They all travel at the same speed of 1,037 one-third miles per hour. This is what I was taught. That was high knowledge for me to say that. So when I get out there and someone is rejecting me, how can you reject God? It wasn't right. It wasn't true. But we have very good terminology that helped us to go out here and challenge the world. Where we was rejected, we had teachings that make us feel good about ourselves. So there was musicians that come out with songs that say, I'm black and I'm proud. And we start being appreciating what God has created me like I am. I start appreciating the color of my skin. I start appreciating my hair, everything, because this is the way God made me. That's what we had to challenge, brother, and it was hard. Hmm? Knowledge of myself. Yes.
Was that many of our brothers were looking for something that made them valuable, that made them equal to other human beings. Was that knowledge actually gotten from Islam, or was it like a cultural?
Yes. You know, when Jamil Diab, uh, pardon not Jamil Diab, but the Honorable Elijah Muhammad had a vision in the 40s. He saw that Islam was the answer for African Americans. The Quran was and we were connected historically uh, with the language of the Quran and with as being Muslims and etc. So he saw he had a vision that the language of the Quran would help us in terms of finding self. Uh, when Allah says mentions in the Quran about the creating of the human being, sometimes you read translations that's even prejudiced too, and it'll use terms that's not correct. So when we started learning the Arabic language, Jamil the Arab, he was a great teacher. He taught us how to think in Arabic. So when I read the Quran and I'm looking at the wording, the terminology is very important. The terminology will correct your thinking right then, brother. So I think because we were deeply involved in learning the language of God, learning the language that God has created that clarifies misconceptions, even in Scripture. That was I believe, the stepping stone, as you might, if I use that term, that changed my thinking. And because of the terminology that God uses in the Quran, it helped me to find myself. Yes. Alaikum salam. I feel better when you asking me a question rather than me sitting here and talking. I have a lot to say, but I feel good coming from you. I feel more comfortable.
Yeah, first, Jazakallah khair.
Wayakum,
You
inshallah.
coming from all the way, and you talked about the nation of Islam.
The audience can be a little patient with us. We having a little mic, but we'll be all right in a few minutes.
Jazakallah khair. I know you mentioned Nation of Islam and all the, mashallah, the good work they did in the beginning. Where where is the turn happened? What happened? I mean, and as today, do you know with all that experience, as today the Islam is different, mashallah, resources, organizations, a lot of opportunities, a lot of knowledge. do you see anything, what is called in Arabic, inhiraf, what happened with all that? It was individual issues, or it was like uh, organization issues? What do you see today? Is there any recommendations? And can you give us a little bit background where the turn happened? Like, for example,
Where did it all come to start?
yeah, with, I mean, as you said, the Nation of Islam, they lifted people that was, left behind, for example, teaching and Islam, and then something happened from there that now it's not like that, right? So just can you give us a little bit, where is the mistakes, or personal mistake, or organizational, or the system, what happened? If you can just, those of us that who don't know.
I think I understood. Say it again, brother. Sorry about that. I'm trying to follow you. Can you repeat? Mention. I hear you, brother, because it's kind of hard to move back and forth.
With all the experience talking about the nation of Islam, you said there were at that time and now. So what happened? And now and that time, is there any something that we need to learn from?
Good point. Yes. Well, I think you will learn a lot from when you begin to hear my life experience and others that's going to be speaking. Uh, I think you need to pay attention to what the people went through with, you know, what the, and you hear different stories from the different people, how they come in before they came in and what, and things like that. You will hear that. But somehow the word self stays with me. We used to do a prayer. It's called, we do it now, and we say, Inni wajjahtu wajhiha lillahi alladhi fatara samawati wal ardan hanifan wama ana min al mushrikeen. That was a famous prayer that we said when we were searching. Everything that I would bring to you is about searching and coming into my own self. Even when God tells us at the ending of life, and He'll say, Enter ye my servants. In the Quran, where it mentions the word, Enter ye my servants. And the word is called Jannati, my paradise. So it's still talking about self, searching for self. Now, in that prayer, it says, Surely I have turned myself to thee, O Allah, who originated the heavens and the earth. Now, remember back then, if you're familiar with the language was used as though people were trying to believe that man is God, and that's not true. But we never used the prayer wording as though we were worshiping God. So everything that we do, it was searching and searching. Surely I have turned my whole self to He who originated the heavens and earth. And then here's the key word, Hanifan, trying to be upright. And if we study the history of Muhammad the Prophet, he was associated with people called them the Hanifas. So I would say in that struggle that we were searching for, my dear brother, we went through many changes, even back in school when we had our school. Elijah Muhammad, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, I'll be pleased with him. When they established the school, they had to do everything they could to have us in an environment where we're being protected by the outside world, because there was so much influence in the outside world. So everything that we did it was always staying together and eliminating ourselves from the outside world. We went to school six days a week. Uh, they wouldn't allow us only to listen to the radio. And TV was out then, that was a big deal. But everything was done to keep us together so that we can grow among ourselves. It was rare to go out somewhere to eat, to a restaurant. We ate at each other's homes. We stayed in touch with each other. We had meetings every week. 2 or 3 days a week would be temple meetings, as we call it. And we wanted everybody to be at these meetings. If you wasn't there, you had to call in and say why you not there. And if you're going to be late, you would call and say, I'm going to be late. So everything was an environment to keep us contained. For what reason? So that we'll be able to grow on our own without being influenced by the outside world. So God blessed us in due time that we came to a certain point that now we have our own mind. We don't have the mind of the outside world. We have our own minds and we depend on the word of God to help us. So now when I speak, I don't speak for the other man, I speak for myself. So do I think those was really the challenge, my brother, if I'm answering you correctly. They did a interview with me once on Tribune newspaper, and the man asked me something very similar. He thought I was talking about that we were forced to be in prison. It wasn't about being, it was about protection. That's what it was. We stayed in touch with each other. And this type of unity growed us to a point of that now I know myself. So now it was encouraged. Later on, I'm going skipping about here and there. When we began to learn that we can go to Hajj, it was a whole new world after then when we made our pilgrimage to the Holy Precinct. Hope I answered your question. I'm sorry. Thank you. hmm in Islamic society, I think now at this point that God has blessed us with our own minds and that we are free, it's time now to develop. Community life is our focus now. As it says, Islamic Center of Nucleus for Community Development. And this is what we want to do now. We want to have something of our own to be able to share with others. We have Chinatown, we have all different towns, not to say that we're separate from each other. It should be a Chinatown, African town. Why can't we have Muslim town? There can be Christian town, it doesn't matter. So we want a life that we'll be able to live our religion free. I want to be able to come to the mosque and pray. I want to be able to have my children safe when they go to school and etc. I want to be able to be able to go to the market and buy food. I don't have to ask questions. There's pork in here. So I'm looking for a Muslim life that's comfortable for me that I can live my religion. This is what we're looking forward to live to develop a Muslim community life and then be able to join with our other brothers and sisters and as I use the word and do our fat. That's our ultimate goal, brother, is first education. First is education. Because we don't want to be a community that's just responding to rituals. We want to be able to be able to think on our own and do for ourselves and give us the chance to develop what God has given me like he has given you. So community life, I would say, would be the focus. Anyone else have any questions? I know that they look forward. They wanted. I'm sorry, I'm not hollering and screaming and trying to appeal to your emotions, and you're hollering and saying Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Uh, we want to listen now.
So
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
another question that I have has to do with the topic of tonight's discussion. The topic of tonight's discussion says that I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's to talk about women, the role of women or heroes, women heroes in Islam from the history of this country. So, I mean, as you've rightly analyzed the kind of challenges and the successes that we've experienced, from the struggles of, our Muslim brothers in this country, how has, our women embraced these struggles as well? And can
Thank
you
you for
tell us
that.
one or two or three, heroes
Yes.
in
You
line with the topic?
know, that's a very important subject with us, with me, with a lot and misunderstood. When the Prophet, peace be upon him, he said, paradise lies at the feet of the mother. And we know the story goes back and forth, the mother, the father, and etc. But what was the key issue in the mother, uh, it, the paradise lies at the feet of the mother? They say that it was reported that the Prophet was watching a baby crying, and the baby was walking, crying, walking to the mother, and he wanted to stand up. So it grabbed it's all babies do that. They go to their mother and they try their best to try to stand up, pull on her dress or whatever, and they finally make it. So Allah gave him a vision in that too, that this baby, he has to do this until he be able to stand on his own. So Allah gave the Prophet Muhammad vision that the future for all of us is with the mother, because it started off with us coming to our mommies for food and for everything, for looking after and etc. So he saw a vision in that paradise, our life, our success in life is going to depend on our mothers. The next, I was watching. If you read in the history of the Quran of the Prophet Muhammad in his last speech, Khutbatu al-Wida, where he mentioned major issues that we're going to be faced with till this day. And one of the issues that he mentioned was the rights of the woman. When Allah says in the Quran, ذَاكِرُونَ وَذَاكِرَاتِ, the thinking man and the thinking woman, there's no difference between the man and the woman. This is what God is saying, is that we're all equal. But when God says, nafsan wahida, one soul, and that one soul is male and the female is there. But what's the difference? We both have a role to play. Man can't have no babies. Women is the one that have to have the babies. But what did God give the man? He is the rijal of his family. He is the legs. He is the supporter of his family. So we both have a role to play, but most important that the Prophet laid on was their rights and the treatment of women in Islam. If you study the history of Islam, and most of you do, that you understand it, the women played a major role in the development of Islam and making our community what it is till this day. I was looking at a special, and it was at nighttime, And the man was explaining about nature, talking about nature itself. And I forget what country it's in, and it says that when you hit this water, when you hit the water, it opens up and stars appear in there, in this water. It's not something you can have the reflection of the stars from the sky, not that, because it was at nighttime, but it was also in a cave. And so this man who was not a Muslim, he named it Sea of Stars, Sea of Stars. So I thought about that a lot about saying Sea of Stars. I thought about the women in Islam. I thought about what Allah has created, their role in Islam, the women's role, and how we depend on them. They are our first teachers. You know, the first caller to prayer is the woman. We know it. The first call to prayer was Bilal ibn Rabah. But in our homes, who is the one who calls the prayer first? Of course, the brother says, it's me. I'm the man. No, it's the woman who's the first caller because how? Because while you're asleep, she's the one to wake you up and tell you it's time for prayer. Wake up, honey, it's time for prayer. So she becomes the first caller to prayer. I'm sorry, brothers. Maybe they might not accept that, but that's the truth. If you go and look at development of families, don't we depend on them? Yes, we do. We depend on them. And Allah shows us in many places in the Quran the place that the woman place has in society. Did they have positions during the time of the Prophet? Yes. That's not un-Islamic that women have positions. Yes, we're going to depend on them. Without the mother input, there won't be no society. You take away the women, there will be no society at all. You know what bothers me more than anything is to see Muslims believing in the Quran and the prophets lay so much emphasis on the treatment of the women. We depend on them highly in many ways with many of our needs. And Allah has created Islam, brothers and sisters, to be a model for the world. Not to overtake the whole world, but to be a model for the world, how families should be. So when God tells us in the Quran, it says, cover yourselves. Then the person that has some problems with, well, I don't know what they do, is talking about the women. Again, my dear brother, when you was asking me certain questions about changes, the challenges that you go through with, if you read that Quran carefully, it will correct so many things. I know I'm speaking to in a way that a lot of sheikhs or imams might say I'm disagreement. It's haram, but see, they don't understand the word haram. Haram means sacred. Also, it means uh, 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 forbidden. Also, all right. Back to the woman. When Allah tells us in the Quran, "O you who believe," is talking about men and women. Do not, when God says do not, it's always in the plural form. It's talking about the men and the women. Cover yourselves. And the brother say, oh, it's only talking about the women, it's talking about the men too. So why would I put my wife in 90-degree weather, wrapped up in a 90-degree weather in winter clothes almost, she's so much covered up, and the brother walking down the street with her in some shorts and t-shirt. So you can see right there, there's a problem, isn't it, of misunderstanding. They have a sister saying the cover said, brothers talking about you too. When you go out in the public, you be covered too, and don't expose yourself to make yourself look indecent. Marahan is the word that God uses, marahan. Dress decent. So when it says cover yourselves, it's talking about the men and the women. So now back to the question and back to the term women. They play a very important role, dear brothers and sisters, in the Islamic world. When Allah said to Prophet Muhammad to read, and it says Iqra, God directed Prophet Muhammad to creation. It wasn't a piece of paper said to read, but it said to read. God is speaking to creation. He's talking to creation. So when we read the Quran, we are reading signs. We're reading signs, not verses of the Quran. Now, I hope you take this in the right spirit, because when I speak, I ask Allah to help me to take over my mind and say the right words that He wants me to say to you. When you look, we do our prayers. We do our prayers, and we make our circle around the Kaaba. The Kaaba is very important to us. Allah says, "Turn your faces in the directions of the Kaaba." So the Kaaba itself is an old structure. We know it started when Abraham had the vision of this meteor falling from the sky, because it was looking for a place for to be built and to serve as a central point for all human beings to turn in the directions to worship one God. All right. So when that rock, the black rock, had landed there, it's very significant. I can tell you so much about its significance in terms of the spiritual part of it and the symbolic meaning of this black rock that we go around in Mecca. It represents the sacredness of the human heart, the human heart, that this black rock that's in at the Kaaba. But the Kaaba has two words. It represents, it's an old house, but it also represents foundation. It's called Qawaid, the foundation of something that's structured and that's important, that will never age. It would always be important, because every year we all travel around the Kaaba, the worship of one God. We all dressed in the same clothing. We're all the same in the eyesight of Allah. Men and women, whatever, children, we're all the same. But the Kaaba is old. It's an old building. Why is it so important? Allah gave the vision that to show that the Qawaid structure represents the woman, the importance of the woman. Allah has created the woman specifically for what purpose? Her body is created where God has made it, where all life is processed. It's the process where we all came from. The woman's body is very, so it never gets old. So when we see a sister, she can be a teenager, a woman can be a teenager, she can be a child, she can be old, it doesn't matter. She never ages. She will always be young, she will always be important in the eyesight of God and what God wants us to see. Why? Because when you see that woman, that's a structure that Allah put together where all life is processed, and it must be preserved and it must be protected. Sea of stars. That's all. Yes, sir. I salute you back too, my friend. And I salute all of the sisters. They talk about Black History Month, they should have a Women's Month too. For their thank you for raising me. When I sit here and talk, yeah, no matter what, how strong I might feel, but because of a woman, I'm able to sit here and talk. So this is what God has made. He has made the woman very sacred. And when I see them misused, It makes me think that what less they know about the religion of Islam. So not us let be so great and say that we are men and she's a woman and you feel strong. I'm strong. I can overtake it. Some of them overtake you. You know, so it just depends on how her structure of the body is. But look at the wisdom also in our prayers. We pray to Allah, and we say Allahu Akbar, and God is greater. This is our prayers all the time. Look at the wisdom in the movement of the prayers that God teaches us, all of us. When we say God is greater, more important, and then we say Al Fatiha. And when we finish Al Fatiha, what do? Our bodies is moving up and down, up and down. But we're bending over now, and we call it the ruku position, with our knees on our hands on our knees. What causes you to be able to go from that position to your knees? The strongest muscle, one of the strongest muscles in your body is right there in your thighs. And if it gets weak, you won't be able to move. You might fall out. You might fall down. Don't you know we need Allah to go from one position to the other? So I'm doing my prayers and I say, I am so great, I'm strong. I'm strong. And I can do this and I'm a champion. I'm whatever. I'm rich and I'm strong. But in that prayer, corrects your mind. And it says, Subhana Rabbil Azim, but God is mightier. So when we come from this position and say, surely Allah hear whoever praises him. Allah heard you before you even said it. So you come back to that position, thank Allah that you was able to rise back to the position, because some people don't rise back up. So you might be great, but Allah is Azim. He is the mightier. So brothers and sisters, the language of the Quran corrects your thinking. And I thank Allah for the son of Elijah Muhammad, Imam Warthaddin Muhammad. You need to study our history. You need to know what happened to a people back in slavery that lost everything. And now you look at them today, they're scholars, they're teachers, they're business people. From that school, teachers were our parents. And from that school, God produced a Muslim leader, Imam Warthaddin Muhammad. He produced him, and he became the world leader. Isn't that something? World respected, educated leader, and he was the only Muslim in the whole world that was invited by the Pope of Rome to speak to 100,000 people. But where did he come from? He came from the kitchen of his mother, Sister Clara. And I went to school with him. I grew up with him. My wife, Gloria Kareem, did too. So God was with us, my brother, in searching. The only thing I could tell you that it was the works of God that caused us to go from stage to stage to stage, because we were searching for self. And now we found ourselves. And now we are able to move ahead into the next stage of life that Allah has for us. So when Allah gets ready to call us back and leave from this life, God says, enter ye, O my servant, enter my paradise. What is Allah saying when He uses the word Jannati? Enter my paradise. He's talking about you. I'm able now to enter my own paradise. What it means, I have found myself before I return to my Lord. That's what they're saying. I have returned back to myself. Now I'm pleased with me. Now that I'm pleased with me, Allah is pleased with me too because I found God and I found myself. So self is very important, brothers and sisters. So we found it, and we thank Allah that we're now being accepted in the world, not from complaining about what America did. That's past. God will take care of that. We went through that experience, and it's over with now. This is a new day now. So this is how we feel that we are a new people, but we don't have that mind that we used to have back then. God has given us a new man now. With the guidance of God, He has given us a leader. And the reason why we accept him as a leader because he have always professed that Muhammad the Prophet is his leader. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So, brother, self is the whole key. It's a lot to self because God didn't say He created this body here. He said He created self. I hope I answered the question. I forgot what the question was. Anyone else have any questions? Do any sister have a question? You know, you're allowed to speak. Well, if anything, we have a long weekend. I'll be speaking tomorrow, and I'm going to speak a little more in depth, inshallah, a little more in depth. There will be other speakers speaking tomorrow too, but tomorrow I want to speak on the what caused, I would say, the thinking of the African American people today, where they seem to be still lost, and what medically, scientifically, what it has done to our souls and to our genes. You would be surprised. And I won't be speaking in terms of something that I came from my mind. I'll be speaking to you from knowledge. Because you think about it, when you see a people being a certain way, you'll say, a person, you'll say, why did he do that? Or why did they say that? So we have to understand the psychological behavior of a people, why they are the way they are. Why some people seem to progress and some don't seem to progress. There's a reason for that. And inshallah, we'll talk a lot about that. And another brother, Imam, will be speaking on where we are today and where we are going with our community. And we feel very blessed today, my dear brothers and sisters, that there's a lot of progress being made of all that we have done, been going through with slavery. I don't like to use that term, but it helps my thinking a lot. So when I see people like yourselves and others, I work with many people at the hospital I work at there in Chicago at Rush. Work with a lot of different people of different faiths. I don't see them as in terms of because of their color or whatever the case would be. I'm working with human beings. There was a question was asked in at the Department of Religion where I met at Rush, and it said that we all work together, Christians, Jews, Muslims, and etc. and all like that. And it says uh, the question was asked about when we go in a room and talk to different patients, and they say, well, I'm not coming here because of who you are. We're working with suffering human beings. It doesn't matter about your religion. And when we say you're a Christian, you're a Jew, or whatever your religion is, we all respect the fact of this one point, and we'll have to remember this too, brothers and sisters. Let us not think that we're going in trying saving people. And many times you have even been saved yourself. So you can't go out and say you're trying to convert people to Islam. Allah converts people to what He wants them to be. So when we visit patients there at Rush or whatever, we're visiting human beings. So I want to thank you all for these few moments. I hope that I've said something that can shed some kind of light on what we're about in our community that I belong to and I was raised under. And this was family night, as they call it, family night. But I didn't see a lot of family here. But I guess they are here. I heard we're going live, and that is good. But family night, and I will end it and conclude it with this here. This is exactly how the original Nation of Islam, as we call it, under Elijah Muhammad, and finally under the Imam Warith Muhammad, his son. This is how we survived when things was taken from us that God has given to us. We all stayed together as family. This is how we survived because we believed in each other. We believed in God. Behind the way the Prophet Muhammad, the way he led it too, was family. And he started his mission, and he only had 12 people, and from there the whole nation grew. So can I tell you one real short about I throw it out there about the planets. You know, they all travel at the same speed. Now, why did I come up with 1,037 1/3 miles per hour? That's not true. But it was language used to keep us together. Faith, isn't it? Faith is what keeps you together. What keeps the earth and heavenly bodies in the sky? And nothing supporting them. Faith, isn't it? That's what keeps, if you understand science, only thing that's holding up those planets, we know it's the greatness of God with the magnetic force and etc. and gravity. But what keeps them into space, and they are all together because they all work with each other by faith. So I think Farad was trying to tell us something when he was talking about them planets. It wasn't so much about the planets themselves. It was just showing that we all have to be together, traveling in the same speed, searching for the one true God, being together. So what keep us together, the same as it keeps the planets in the sky? Faith and trust. So we have our brother that's the director. Is he here to say, I want to thank you all for your time. And I would mention to them, the story is right here. You're going to say, where did I find all that? This is not a sales pitch. It's not about selling. What I have in my hand is information. That's all. It's not sales, it's information. And we have something that you should take it with you. Remember this, brothers and sisters. This, my favorite movie. I'm not going to decorate you to know, oh, this is haram. You shouldn't go to movies. Oh, you go to movies. Everybody go to movies. So don't say it's haram. But it depends on what you have in mind. One favorite movie of mine was a man who was in business. And he was buying property. He was in stock market. And he was real smart. And he was trying to teach this young man the ropes about the stock market, how you get rich, and etc. He said, very easily. He said, I spent $2.5 million just to know. And the young man thought he was crazy. You're going to spend wasting $2 million just to know? He said, yeah. And he says, the most important commodity in the whole world is information. That's what I have for you tonight. $70. Inshallah. I pray Allah that I said something to you that wouldn't put you to sleep, and I enjoyed it, and I heard we were at extreme too. So letting the people know too, the most important, the first national independent Islamic school system in America. You should read that book. You should read the book, and it was written by me with some very professional help in putting that all the information together. And I like to read your books too. That's what we should do, learn from each other. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Jazakallah khair, Imam Darnell, for being here. It's a pleasure to have him here. This is a small